Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Glad that you are with us. It's Thursday. As Dale reminds us, it's Friday Eve. Hey, programming note, we will not be having a live stream tomorrow. I will not be here. I'll be flying to Virginia for a wedding, so no live stream tomorrow. Also today, I'm going to keep this a little shorter than normal, although I know I say that all the time, don't I? And I might be a little distracted. We are getting an air conditioner put in today, and there are folks working and dragging stuff in and out behind me, and I've realized it's kind of distracting. We have our home fellowship, and we've lived in this house for 12 years, and we've never had AC because here in Colorado Springs, apart from a couple of weeks of the summer, we really get by fine without it and get some good fans going, and it cools down usually in the evening. We can sleep, and that's fine. But with our home fellowship, we get 35 or so people in this living room kitchen area, and it gets hot. So we are putting in AC today, and so I'm trying not to be distracted. Rob says, so it'll be 35 minutes. Ha, yes, well, that's fair. I deserve that. Anyway, we are in 1 Timothy chapter 3. We're looking at the qualifications for the overseers, the bishops, the episcopus, the elders, if you will. And today we're looking at the list here in verses 2 and maybe a little further. Picking it up there, it is required, therefore, the overseer to be blameless. We talked about what that means. A husband of one wife. We talked about what that means. I was thinking about Dale's question at about 3 o'clock this morning, and when he was saying, if the wife part here is, I forget how he phrased it, but basically, if we're going to say you don't have to be the husband of one wife, meaning you don't have to be married, on what basis does this man stick? In other words, he was asking the question, and he was simply putting it out as a reasonable question, not arguing for this position, I assume. But if we can't be sure of what the one wife part means, can we be sure that this has to be a man? And as I was pondering this, I realized I think it does for the reasons I stated yesterday, but also he says it is required for the overseer to be blameless, a husband, vigilant and so forth. The of one wife is the modifier of the husband. Now that still may not satisfy. It says it's man of one woman, which would indicate he's a married man. But the way it is phrased in the Greek, I think the man part is non-negotiable. It's still less than 100% certainty based on just the language there itself. I think the leading his own house later on will cement that, at least for me. But anyway, so I'm gonna come down a little harder on the male just from that phrase than I did yesterday, without being able to prove with a 100% certainty. So anyway, Dale, there you go. I was thinking about your question early this morning. All right, so then he gives several others: vigilant, sober, respectable, friend of strangers, apt to teach, not given to wine, not a striker, but gentle, not contentious, not a lover of money, leading his own house well, and so on. It's this group right here that we'll look at first here: vigilant, sober, respectable. Now, if you look at your various translations, you will find different words that get at the same kind of thing. Vigilant, sober, respectable, temperate, prudent, self-controlled, some of those kinds of things. So these are all words that get near the same place, and some of the words could be translated the same way. For instance, these two words that are translated here, vigilant and sober, both could be translated self-controlled. Or even sort of wise. So, the translators are going to find different terms, English terms, to get at the same point. So my question is, why does Paul pile up several words here that are very close, almost synonyms? Why does he repeat himself, if you will? Why does he give 3 different terms for this? And I assume because it's important. He wants Timothy to understand that if someone is going to be an overseer, these kinds of things are very important. These character traits are very important. And as far as getting to a definition, I want to pull up here for you the Amplified Bible. Do y'all ever use the Amplified Bible? It's not a translation as much as an amplification, which is why it's called the Amplified Bible. And though I don't always like their amplification, a lot of times it's really helpful because they will throw together a variety of words and phrases to communicate what they think the Greek is saying. And it can sometimes force you to come to a little broader understanding of some things. So I would encourage, for our NCST students, I used to encourage them to translate, for the Greek students especially, to translate a portion of Scripture and then write an amplified version. Sometimes I'll have them do it even for the non-Greek students. If we're studying a long passage, I would have them rewrite it in their own words and then amplify it like the Amplified Bible does to force them to think through synonyms and different terminology to get at the same thing. So it's worth your time, I think, to look at the Amplified version just as to come alongside your understanding of the text. So here's verse 2 in the Amplified Bible. Ozzy says, we absolutely use the amp in our house when we want a simple discussion. Yeah, it can be helpful for that, right? All right, so here it is. Now a bishop, and you see how they're translating a bishop here other than overseer, but then they put in parentheses, superintendent, overseer, must give no grounds for accusation. That's very close to how I was describing blameless or above reproach the other day. And then they say must be above reproach. The husband of one wife. They don't give much expansion on that. And then circumspect and temperate and self-controlled. He must be sensible and well-behaved and dignified and lead an orderly life. Those are all really good, helpful terms to get at the intent of Paul here. So let me read those again for those of you listening via podcast. Circumspect, temperate, self-controlled, sensible, well-behaved, dignified, and lead an orderly, disciplined life. Again, lots of terms to communicate the heart of what Paul's concerned with here. So think about what it means to be circumspect. The spect is from one of our English words from the Latin that has to do with looking, and circum, the circle, around. So circumspect, someone who's circumspect looks around at things and observes them and is careful in thinking about all the things he observes. Temperate, right? Temperate is someone who is not flying off the handle. Someone who has a handle on, has a control of their responses to things, and they're not given to extremes. Self-controlled, very similar, right? You are in control of yourself. Sensible. We think of rational. We think of making wise decisions. Sensible as opposed to foolish decisions. Well-behaved. The Greek word that lies behind that's pretty good. Orderly, well-behaved, dignified, where your life is ordered properly with some respectability, that kind of thing. And lead an orderly, disciplined life. Think about the opposite of that, an undisciplined life, where there's no schedule to anything. And I don't, we these are all broad general terms, so we have to be careful not to get too, we can't use our practices as the standard, but there is something to be said for someone who thinks through how to use their time, and they don't just stay up all hours of the night. And again, I don't mean that to be the criteria here, but you know what I mean, right? There probably are people whose sleep schedule is erratic compared to mine, for instance, but their lives are still well ordered. If that's intentional, fine. But the opposite of this would be the person who it's not intentional. They're up at all hours, going to bed at different times. Their whole life is chaos and out of control. You following me? So again, I think I'm not trying to make this all about following a strict schedule. That's not exactly what well-ordered life means. But the intentionality is really the heart of it. Does that make sense? Because I started to go down the path of scheduling there, and I think there is great wisdom in going to bed earlier than a lot of people do, earlier than I did 30 years ago, and getting up early. There's wisdom in that. But then again, there are other people that just thrive, it seems, staying up late and sleeping late. I don't think that means their life is not well ordered, as long as that is intentional and not simply because they have no self-control. Does that make sense? You tracking with the difference there? Kathy says, sadly, it seems to me that there are far too many overseers who are scripturally unqualified. Yeah. Isn't that the truth? All right. So, why is that? Well, it must be because churches put men in these positions without examining them, right? Without holding them to this kind of standard. How do we do that? How do we make sure that we have qualified men? Well, this gets back to our question yesterday about, does a man have to be married? Does he have to have children? How old does he have to be? Now, again, we're not given precise ages, and we still have to wrestle through the question, even though it does say husband of one wife and manage his children well. Does that mean there's a requirement for a wife and children? We'll talk more about that next week. But it does raise the question, when someone is an elder candidate, do they have a track record? A 24 or 5-year-old graduating from seminary or Bible college doesn't really have a track record, at least not a very long one, where these things can be observed. Now, there are exceptions. You all know my son Gabe. Some of you know his music. It's his music that I play at the beginning here before the live stream, for those of you who are watching on YouTube and Facebook. And I've had him on the program here a few times. I've interviewed him, I think, last December as he was leading up to his wedding. I brought him on and we did a podcast together and some of those things. He is 19. He owns his own business. He has produced an album and several other singles. He's married. He is financially stable. He's not in debt. He is self-controlled, self-disciplined. He's wise. He's prudent. He's all these things. I mean, go right down the list. He's sensible. He's well-behaved. He's temperate. He lives an orderly life. He's hospitable. All this. He's 19. Would I recommend him as an elder? Absolutely not. I mean, he is more mature than many 20 and 30-year-olds I know. And he is on a trajectory that is exciting. I can't wait to see, Lord willing, that I'll be around to see what he's going to be like in 30 years. However, he's 19. He's been a husband for 5 months. He has no children yet. So in many ways, he is, at least for me as his father, he has proven to me, and I have an up close personal view of this. he fits the criteria here better than a lot of men in their 50s and 60s that I know, even men who've been elders. But I would still say he needs a much longer track record, right? He's only been out from under my immediate supervision 4 or 5 months. Not even that, because I just moved out a couple months ago, less than. So he needs to be on his own, leading his wife, running this business, and proving that everything I see now is real and maintain. And he will maintain it. That means there needs to be some time, years, of continuing down that path before, in my opinion, he's proven himself to say, yes, he is these things. Do you see the difference? I mean, he was a pretty mature kid when he was 14. But obviously, you're not going to put a 14-year-old as an elder. Should you put a 20-year-old as an elder? 25-year-old? Again, we're not given specific ages. But the point is, these men need to have lived enough life and have had the opportunities to prove that they're sensible and well-ordered and dignified and self-controlled and temperate. Life stages bring temptations, don't they? Right? There will be temptations to my son, now that he's out from under my roof, that he didn't have when he was here. Or at least he was not likely to act on those temptations because he was under my scrutiny. But he's fully independent now. Now he has the opportunity to show that he will resist those temptations and make good decisions. All men need a track record. They need some time to establish themselves so that people can see this. We're not just looking for nice guys. We're not looking for guys that are successful in their business. We're looking for these character traits. And it takes time. How much time? I don't know. We're not given that. But enough time where people can look at him and say, yep, that person has proven themselves. Yeah, Dale says elder is also translated older. Exactly. That's the word presbyteros. It means, at root, it means older. And I think there's a good reason why older became this sort of technical term to describe what we call elders. Because the implication is older men have learned from their experiences and are in a better position now to be the leaders, be the overseers of a group of people. It's a great point, and it's an important one. A 25-year-old graduate from Bible college or seminary doesn't have the life experience. I mean, think about how many things, those of you who are older, how much of your wisdom came from poor choices earlier that you now learned from. I've been reading this biography of George Washington, and his first 2 major battles when he was a young captain, lieutenant colonel, early on in the French and Indian War era, his troops were massacred, humiliatingly so. And what he learned from that was, among many things, the British style of war doesn't work in the Ohio Valley area, in the forests there. It doesn't work. And so he learned, he from those humiliating defeats, what it would take to raise up a regiment of men who were capable of fighting in that terrain as opposed to the way the British did it with their lines and so on. And he went on, of course, to become one of the greatest military generals of all time. But he had to learn. His wisdom that he had later during the American Revolution was largely gained because of his previous failures. And he showed his wisdom in that he learned from those mistakes and improved. So men who are going to be elders, who are going to lead others, they need to have made some mistakes. They need to have shown they will gain the self-control and the wisdom, the prudence from their own errors and from observing others. So we just should not rush men, no matter how successful they are or talented they are, because those are not the criteria. We shouldn't rush these men into an elder position. And I think, Kathy, to respond to why so few have those standards, they're just not held to them before they're put into those positions. And it matters. These are the men who have Christ-given authority to oversee, to manage the household of God. Imagine being a 25-year-old entrusted with that and leading men who are twice your age. Again, it's not all about age, but why would we put those guys in those categories? I have seen and I've experienced significant, I want to be careful here. I've seen churches suffer greatly because of young elders, some of whom I encouraged. And now I look back and I think, what was I thinking? To encourage these men to be brought on as elders, they caused great disruption in the church. They shouldn't have been elders. And I don't think I should have been an elder as early as I was, frankly. So yeah, this is difficult, but it matters because these are the men who are overseeing God's people. All right, let me catch your comments, and then I'm going to keep my word and be done early. Ozzy says, for me personally, I fell for the trap of thinking that these overseers were the final authority. I read my Bible, but never studied it. Huge difference. Yeah, overseers, we'll talk more about their authority down the road. They don't have final authority. They do have real authority. So we'll talk about that. Another word that's used here, I think, is not a new convert. Yep, we will look at that next week. Kathy says, yes, it does matter because flocks are being led far astray by their shepherd. Indeed. Dale says, seems like a lot is lost when eldership is made into a modern career path. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And you know I keep saying this, but we have to get this in our bloodstream and then see if we can affect change, which is going to be hard because we are pushing against all of the momentum for 2,000 years almost. But when church is primarily around a Sunday service and all of the programs, the other quote-unquote ministries, when that's predominantly what church is, regardless of what we say it is, when that's functionally, that's what it is. It's the Sunday service plus all the other programs, the various ministries. Then the men we tend to bring on as leaders are those that we think will help us put on a good program on Sunday morning and the rest of the week. Administrative gifts, talent, skills that will help us with our formal ministries effectively. Small group leaders. So often elders are small group leaders, which is typically just an added program. And so are they organized? Are they good at leading a discussion? You know, are they the kind that will follow up with people and check in on them, that kind of thing? And can they help us organize men's ministry and nursery workers, building, take care of the building, all that? And some of that's put off on trustees or deacons or whatever. But it makes sense then we're going to have somebody at the top of the org chart, the senior pastor, who's this is his career. And again, he studies to put on the presentation on Sunday morning and leads the rest for the programs. But if our concern is the people, shepherding them toward godliness and peace and the quiet life that Paul's already admonished, then what kind of shepherds do you want for those sheep? You want the men who are already leading their own quiet, peaceful, godly lives, who have some battle scars from learning how to do this and can graciously and gently move the sheep down that path It's not about what you do on Sunday morning. It's not about the organization. It's not about the programs. It's about people being moved toward godliness. If that's your goal, then of course you're going to want men who have proven themselves capable of helping others get there. And as long as our churches are mostly about the programs, we're not going to look for elders like that. And it shows. Now, I'm hopeful because I'm convinced this is what the Lord set up and we can get back there. But it's going to take some doing. So, all right, I am going to stick to my word here, wrap it up. No live stream tomorrow. We will see you all on Monday and continue on with these qualifications. Have a great weekend, everybody. Grace and peace to you.